As one of the primary suppliers to the UEE Navy in Star Citizen, Aegis Dynamics has built a reputation on providing reliable combat vessels with one of the most expansive lineups of flyable ships in the game. And this video will give you the lowdown on the manufacturer, the ships they build, a little of the in-game history of Aegis Dynamics, and a look at the design language and style. In case you don't recognise my voice, I'm Forrester, and I'll be your host through this spotlight. I regularly upload Star Citizen videos onto YouTube, so if this kind of thing appeals to your piloting instincts, you might like to subscribe to be notified of future Star Citizen videos as they go live. Some of the most iconic Aegis Dynamics products are the fighters, like the Gladius and the Sabre. The Gladius is the Aegis answer to the light fighter, and is set to feature in the Squadron 42 campaign. It's heavily armed, highly manoeuvrable, not to mention incredibly stylish. Whereas the Vanguard series is a much more heavy fighter, with the potential for a couple of crew members to work in tandem together. The Sabre changes things up slightly, with a marginally heavier weapon set than the Gladius, but much more of a stealth profile. And talking of stealth profile, Aegis also produces the Eclipse, the single-seater stealth bomber with huge size 9 torpedoes. Like the Sabre, the Eclipse looks similar to stealth bombers, like the B-2 with its flying wing. And also in the single-seat category is the Avenger series, often seen as some of the greatest starter ships for new players. The Avenger balances some of the combat characteristics with a physical interior, able to undertake a wider variety of roles, such as cargo transport. Then, Aegis Dynamics also manufactures some larger ships. The Retaliator is an upscale bomber, a futuristic version of those World War II bombers, bristling with defensive turrets as well as the main armament. And the Redeemer is a heavy gunship, bristling with big guns and even a few seats for Marines. And one of the larger ships currently flyable in-game also carries the Aegis Dynamics logo, in the form of the Hammerhead escort corvette. Of all of the Aegis lineup, the internal design of the Hammerhead gives the biggest clue as to what to expect from the unreleased capital ships. Whilst most of the Aegis Dynamics ships are combat focused, there is one notable exception in the Reclaimer. The huge dedicated salvage ship with the instantly recognisable claw up front is not a common sight in the game at the moment, simply due to the lack of a gameplay loop for it. Soon, maybe? But the internals also seem to carry influences from the Aliens franchise. There are some ships that aren't quite in-game yet too. The Nautilus mine layer is a good example, or the Vulcan support craft. But two of the most iconic Aegis Dynamics ships are the two great capital ships, the Idris class frigate and the Javelin class destroyer, both of which are set to feature heavily in the Squadron 42 campaign. Whilst there have been some hints of these ships in the PU at time of recording, they've not been formally released as flyable ships, and owing to the large crew requirements, are likely dependent on back-end server tech. Finally, whilst the Starfarer is a MISC ship, the Gemini variant was made more military-ready by Aegis Dynamics, who develop around the original chassis. As you might expect from an in-game company that supplies ships to the UEE Navy, Aegis Dynamics has a lot of story points behind it. Whilst this video will touch on those briefly so you have an idea of what this in-game company stands for, if you're interested in finding out more, I'd highly recommend visiting the Astropub. I've linked the Galactic Historian video specifically concerning Aegis Dynamics down below and at the end of this video, and it's a fantastic exploration of some of the story. The company was formed from a merger between Earth-based Aegis Macrocomputing and the Davian-based Dynamic Production Systems, with the goal from the outset of being to build naval spacecraft. The company became closely linked to the Mesa era, and with the subsequent decline, Aegis took a hit to popularity, seen as closely linked to the hardline regime. The company put in a lot of work into rebranding at that point. But as the ships were so ubiquitous, with many changing hands from military to civilian use, the popularity of the company slowly began to rise again, underpinned by the rugged and reliable nature of the ships it produces. It's important to point out that Aegis Dynamics in-game is one of those manufacturers that has been around for a long time, so the style of ships from different time periods may be slightly different. But in general, there are some common themes that give ships an Aegis Dynamics flavour. Externally, some of the common features are the use of bulky panels, particularly with the military-style olive green. That's evident on some of the smaller ships like the Gladius and the Vulcan, but also on larger ships, including the Starfarer Gemini and the Idris. Then there's the black and white motif, similar to the modern Space Shuttle Orbiter. That's immediately obvious on the Avenger, but may also feature on the Nautilus. And for the stealth variants, there's a clear design choice too, with a black, almost radar reflective type of look and feel to it. Internally, there is also a distinct style, particularly amongst the larger ships. Some of the olive green plating from the outside makes its way inside. The use of circular corridors, but with a flat ceiling and floor, gives a very space-age feel. And some of the walls use padding, which is a really nice touch, especially for larger ships that could end up shaking around in the heat of combat. All in all, it makes me very excited to walk around some of the Aegis Dynamics capital ships, like the Idris or Javelin. But what about you? I'd love to know what you think, either of Aegis Dynamics and their ships, or of this style of video, and whether it's something you'd like to see more of for different manufacturers. You can do that by sharing your specific thoughts in the video comments, or pressing that like button so I know you'd like to see more videos like this. Otherwise, and as ever, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.